Hello and welcome to Unit 9 of Algebra 2, Day 2. Now we're going to be doing vertical shifts. Yesterday we did sine and cosine curves with a vertical stretch and a reflection on the x-axis. Okay, so that was the positive or negative and then the a value. That was yesterday. Today we're doing this d value. You'll notice on eMath instruction they have it labeled as C, but we know that there's some shifts sometimes on the X, so we're going to keep it alphabetical. So this last number is always your vertical shift. Now yesterday I told you that that is also the midline. That means the entire graph is going to shift. So where we were doing all our graphs max, middle, min, and the middle was always 0, the middle will no longer be 0. So you're going to have to always put that into your graph first. Okay? So to start the first one, we're going to go ahead and see that this one has a shift of 3. So this graph, they gave you the regular sine curve. Hopefully you all recognized it as sine because it started at 0. Okay, you know, cosine starts at 1 and goes like that. Okay, so this is a sine curve, but they're telling you that you need to shift it up 3 units. Now that's going to change your range also. Okay, the range is found by this little formula right here. You're going to take the midline and add the height and subtract the height. Okay, so yesterday we were always at 0, and then the amplitude raised me up from there and down from there. Okay, so this time we're actually at 3. So the range is going to be 3 plus or minus the a value. Well, we don't have an a value here, so it's 1. So that means my range is going to go up to 4 and down to down to 2, sorry. Okay, 3 plus 1 is 4, 3 minus 1 is 2. Okay, so like I said before, we place that midline on there first. So here is 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to just place almost like those asymptotes we were doing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is my midline of y equals 3. And then I'm going to start at the middle, and I'm going to go up to the amplitude. My amplitude, looking at that, there is no a value, so we know it is a 1. So I'm going to start here, where sine always starts, right, in the middle. But now it's starting at 3 instead of 0 because there was a shift. So it's middle, max, middle, min, middle. And this same exact curve is followed right here. There's our 3 points up, 3 points down. And then we follow that same wave the opposite direction. So middle, min, middle, max, middle. Okay, there's our graph. So off to the left it says, how would you graph the shift? You're going to shift up 3. And we did that already. We did our graph. Okay, so now on this one, I crossed out, use the calculator. You can check it using the calculator, but I want to make sure that you comprehend this, because a lot of you type into the calculator and you get confused. You don't even know what you're typing sometimes, especially when it has to be changed to radians, not degrees. Okay, so here is my A and here is my D, which means I have a new midline. That midline is y equals 1. Now my range is going to be 1 plus 2 and 1 minus 2, because this amplitude makes it go up from here to 2 and down 2. So that means my range is going to go from 3 to -1. So the first thing we do again is plot that. So when they ask us to sketch this, I'm going to first put my horizontal line at 1. So that's my new midline. Instead of 0, it's 1. And then my amplitude is up 2 units from here. So sine always starts at 0, and now that's middle. Max has to get stretched vertically by 2, then middle, then stretched vertically by 2 going down, okay, then middle, stretched vertically on 0 is just 0. So here's the stretched U and the stretched U. So if you notice, look at the regular sign. This is now stretched by 2 and shifted up. And you can just follow that same pattern to the left with the same stretching, okay? So every tick mark, every one of these scales, you have to have a point. And remember what we said last quarter? That point always has to go middle, max, middle, min, middle, max, and so on. You always have to have, for every tick, every scale, there has to be a point, okay? So if I start here and I come here, I can't go middle, max, min on my next tick. I have to pass through every time, okay? So given the equation of the horizontal line that rises, sketch this. We did. It's all done. State the range of this. Well, the range is from -1 up to 3. And it's inclusive because it turns on those points. So here's 3, here's -1. Have that on your graph. Okay? Not too bad, right? So now we're going to do a sine and a cosine curve. Again, up here is just reminding you about the midline and how the midline is really the average. It's the middle, okay? So if we had to average out the maximum and the minimum, we get that middle point, okay? So the midline, here we have an amplitude of 4 and a midline of 2. So that means I have a -2 and I need to go up and down 4 points. So -2 up 4 is 2. -2 down 4 is -6. So here's my maximum. Here's my minimum. And I know sine always starts at the middle, and my middle is -2. So the first thing I'm going to do over here is at -2, I'm going to put that dotted line. Midline, y equals -2. And then from -2, that's where sine always starts at 0, right? That 0 is no longer 0 because it shifted down 2. So here's my new middle. I then have to go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 2. Well, that checks on the side. So the next scale, the next tick mark, here, I have to be up at my maximum. The next tick mark, the scale, is middle. The next tick mark is minimum. That means a vertical stretch down to -6 we said over here in our work. So let's see. This is -2, -4, -6, and then back to my middle. So you see we have a stretch, and the amplitude is the space from here to here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That does have 4 units. Even though it's only at 2, that's because the whole midline shifted down 2. So right here, the amplitude of this is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm down at -6 because I started at -2. Amplitude is always positive, so that amplitude is 4. Okay, what makes it negative is the flip. So don't ever say your amplitude is ever a negative, okay? So we just follow that same pattern. Min, middle, max, middle. And there's that same shape again, okay? So that's my y equals 4 sine x, and the negative 2 is really a minus 2. Notice it was not grouped with the x. If it was grouped with the x, that would be a shift left and right, okay? So right here, this time I do have to flip it. So remember, cosine always starts at the max. Well, it's not going to start at the max this time. It's going to flip and start at the min. And this is my new midline. So if I had to have a max and a min, my first thing I do is 3 plus or minus the a value. My a value is 2, not negative 2. 2. So 3 plus 2 is 5. 3 minus 2 is 1. So I'm going to do this in red over here. So here is 3. So here's my new midline at y equals 3. Cosine normally starts at the max, but this reflected, right? That negative made it flip, and there was a vertical stretch. So instead of being at the middle, I have to be at the maximum, would be a stretch of 2, but it reflected. So it's really here, which happens to be the min, and that checks. So I have minimum, middle, maximum. Remember that amplitude is 2, amplitude is 2. Middle, amplitude is 2. So I have 3 points here. Get that U in first so that you recognize how this U is going to shape this way, okay? And this U is going to shape this way. So it's always kind of like that wave that just curves along. And then once we get here, it's a vertical stretch of 2 on your amplitude. Back to the middle. And then down here. And that is my y equals negative 2 cos x minus plus 3. I know it's hard to see, but you know it. It's right here. Okay? So recognize your range went from 1 to 5. Okay? If this is 3, it went amplitude of 2 is 1, amplitude of 2 is 5. Okay? So these are just doing the range. So range is always found midline plus or minus the amplitude. So this is my midline, 7 is my amplitude. So it is 4 plus or minus 7. So it's 4 plus 7 is 11, 4 minus 7 is negative 3. So my range is negative 3 to 11. Keep it in numerical order. Okay, so here's my midline. Here's my A, not negative. That's just going to tell you that you're going to have to flip this if you graph it. Okay, so it's 2 plus or minus 5, which gives me 7 and negative 3. So negative 3 to 7. Okay, this one, it is 35 plus or minus 25. So 35 plus 25 is 60. 35 minus 25 is 10. So we're going to go from 10 to 60. Okay? All right, exercise 5, I'm actually going to do as the do now in class tomorrow. It's going to show you how your minimum and your maximum can calculate the midline, since the midline is just an average. Okay, so we will do that tomorrow as a do now in class. Okay, I hope you paused this, double checked everything, made sure everything was complete. And if you have any questions, make sure you're coming to Extra Help and Hoops. Okay? And of course, you could graph all these on the calculator to double check them if you'd like. Have a good night. Bye.